Let's get to, speaking of looking back on a legacy of Hollywood icons. This week's blend game is Sean Connery blend, obviously chosen because we recently lost him, and we've been reflecting on his career as a whole. And we ended up running a piece on CinemaBlend, which was Sean Connery roles that prove that he is a icon outside of the James Bond franchise. And I mean, it was just, you forget the sheer amount of amazing films that he's been in over the years. There are actors who would love to have one or two of them. If you told an actor, hey, you're going to be remembered for The Hunt for Red October, they would say, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Ain't mad about it.
Yeah. And Connery has got so many underneath his belt. So, Jake, I'm going to start with you. Where did you go when choosing your favorites? Because I'm pretty sure I know where Kevin's going to go.
I think I know where Kevin's going to go too. I went with the sort of what was my introduction to Sean Connery as a kid, which is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
There you go.
I mean,
best one.
We're talking. Well, I would say Raiders and Last Crusade are both 10. So like it's splitting hairs. But look, it's Indiana Jones is already one of the probably, I would say, top 5 greatest movie characters in the history of cinema. So it says a lot that you can add another character who makes him better.
Yeah.
Like
right.
Sean Connery makes Harrison Ford better in The Last Crusade for so many reasons. He's so incredibly charming in that movie. He genuinely feels it feels natural that he would be the father of Indiana Jones. He's a perfect, I don't know if foil is the right word, but perfect to kind of, he brings a lot out of Harrison Ford, out of Indiana Jones. But probably, I was thinking a lot about sort of like the great moments of his career, of all of his films. And the one that I kept going back to was when at the very end of the film, in the climax, when Indiana Jones he's hanging on to the ledge and he's going to fall in the hole and he's trying to get the Holy Grail, and Sean Connery, Dr. Henry Jones just says like Indiana, just let it go. Mm-hmm. And there's so many layers to that line about knowing when to let things go, and especially coming from him, who kind of turned away Indy, his whole life. He always kind of left Indy behind so he could go off and do this and do that, and finally for him to step forward and realize and basically say, my son's life is more important than this thing I've been chasing after my entire life. I rewatched it after he passed, and it was it now has more significance to it. And in fact, that was the role that I believe he said, if there were ever going to be a role that would have brought him out of retirement, it would have been that one. So I think that even to him, not saying it was his most important, not saying it was his favorite role, but it seems like it held a special significance to him as well.
I don't think that we ever put enough emphasis on the fact that Sean Connery walked into that franchise, which was, an elite franchise, even at that level, with only 2 films, and created as captivating a character as he did. And it goes to show, not to throw Shy under the bus, but it's really hard to do.
Sure.
When you come in as the new guy, if you don't hit the tone right.
Sure.
But I kind of realize now, in you saying this, how much of that plays to how Harrison Ford let Sean Connery, because in 2 movies prior to that, Indiana Jones is the coolest MF in the room, right? And in Crusade, he's the son, who's constantly has to be like
Junior.
Yeah, and he's just humbled. And if Harrison Ford doesn't agree to do that, it doesn't work,
100%.
right? He has to play the opposite side of the coin for the duration of it.
What's the scene where Harrison's kind of flirting with a woman? And then Sean Connery implies that he already slept with her.
He says she talks in her sleep.
She talks in her sleep.
Yeah. And again, all that dynamic doesn't work if Harrison Ford doesn't allow it. But Connery is cooler than cool in that film and is unbelievable. So, Kev, I'm pretty sure I know where you're going. But
I feel like this is obvious. The Rock. I mean, no question.
It's not wrong.
I can't argue. That's a great choice.
Michael Bay. But I also have a very distinct memory of seeing The Rock. So I remember my dad. We went to AMC Patrick Henry in Newport News, Virginia. My mom, my dad, my brother, and I went. So it was 96, I think was that movie. So I was 12. My brother was 10. And so I think I've told you guys the story before, but I'll never forget. I could see it heavily. You walk up to the box office window. It was in the middle of a mall. And I remember my dad asking for 4 tickets, 2 adults, 2 kids for The Rock. And he was like, "Can I speak to a manager, please?" And this manager walks around, and my dad goes over, and he's like, And I asked him later on what he said. He goes, he wanted to ask the manager if there was any sex scenes in the film, so they could like block my brother and I's eyes. You can watch all the violence you want, but
yeah, we can shove that little green ball into the guy's mouth and watch his freaking face melt. Oh yeah,
that's fine. So no, I just remember, I'll never forget, I can see my dad asking that question. I can see my dad and mom covering our eyes during the Nicolas Cage sex scene in the beginning of the film where he has with
it's like right off the bat. They just get it out of the way.
Yeah. Isn't it like a religious, it was like a religious thing. Like they were like the sequence was
like trying to have a baby? I think they're trying to have a baby.
It had something to do with her religion, and they had to like, it's something, I can't remember the specifics of that scene, but I remember because my eyes were covered.
Because you've never seen it.
Yeah, I still cover my eyes today. I still haven't seen the scene. No, but and then that film just came on the screen, and I was like, I mean, this was my first Michael Bay experience, right? Because I was too young to see Bad Boys at that point. I had never that. Remember that whole era of Bruckheimer and Simpson, Simpson, and that lightning bolt.
Oh yeah.
There was nothing like that. Was such an iconic. That might have been the first time I saw that, because that from that point forward, and then when you would see the Dimension logo, you knew something was going to be good.
Shit was going down.
Right, and The Rock was like such a. It's so interesting because when I was 12. I feel like the 12-year-old me who watched it still watches it the way I do at 36. It was just like such an insane action movie. And I'm trying to remember now if I have this timeline wrong or right. But my parents took us to San Francisco to Alcatraz when we were kids.
Wow.
I've always wanted to go.
Funny enough, Sean, you'll appreciate this. When we were in San Francisco that weekend, this is all revolving around the Rock, I guess. My dad took me to a music store to buy me Enema of the State, which was Blink-182's album at the time.
Nice.
And so I guess that would give us the indication if that trip was before or after The Rock. What year did that album come out? I don't remember
97, I want to say.
If it was
so, it might have been right after.
So
might have been after.
Can someone confirm that? Because if that's the case,
I'm looking.
Okay,
99. I'm on it. Came out June 1st, 1999.
Then that's perfect.
Oh, 99.
Wow.
So that means when I was in San Francisco at that point, I had already seen The Rock. So going to Alcatraz with my family was a big deal for me as a kid because I'd seen The Rock. Now think about it this way: I'm walking through Alcatraz. I'm trying to remember the specifics of it. We went into the famous cell where who was the gangster that was very big time gangster who was there?
Capone? Al Capone?
Was Capone in Alcatraz?
No, I don't think Capone ever went to Alcatraz.
It was somebody else. But all I remember is going...
No, I thought Capone was in Alcatraz.
Was he?
Yeah.
Might have been,
I'm pretty sure he was.
But like they take you to the tour and you get to go into the cells. Remember in the movie, they lock them in the cells? Like that's what happens in the film. That's what Ed Harris does.
Yeah.
They lock the tourists in the cells.
Yeah.
So just that whole experience, I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but... it's just the memories I have of that film, specifically.
Wait, I want to bring you back specifically, though. Do you like Connery in that film?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm completely on a tangent with The Rock. Sorry.
I mean, I know you love The Rock as a whole, but do you love Connery in that movie?
And the reason why I chose the movie is because it was genuinely the first time I really fell in love with Connery as an actor. I was 12, so I mean, like I had seen the Indiana Jones films, but seeing an R-rated film and seeing like the prom queen line and like there was just so many like details about that performance that were so great. My favorite scene in that film, though, is one of my favorite scenes in the film is the scene he has with his daughter. It's after this like gigantic car chase, and he sits down in this quiet sequence, and it's the girl from Mallrats, the girl who's dating. I'm trying to remember her name off the top of my head.
Claire Forlani? Is it Claire Forlani?
Maybe. I'm trying to remember her name, but she plays Connery's daughter in the film. And it's like this sweet moment they have before they enter into The Rock.
Oh, God, now you're making me want to watch The Rock.
The Rock
I know, I want to watch it too.
But Connery's so brilliant. The presence he has in that film, I love him and Nick Cage's chemistry. But to me, like that is my quintessential Sean Connery film. It's like the long hair at first, and he's clean cut. He's back at The Rock. Is the only one.
Do you like your haircut?
Yeah, I love that movie. So yeah, I know I went off on a tangent, but forgive me.
There have been a bunch of stories, obviously, that have come out since his passing. But did you see the story talking about like star power that Bruckheimer shared about The Rock with Connery? They fell a few days behind schedule. and Buena Vista, who's Disney, a few producers came down and they basically were going to start cutting the budget. They came down to set to like see what was going on and why it was falling behind, and they were going to cut the budget. And Connery basically yelled at them that they didn't know how good they had it and how good this movie was going to be, and kind of scared them off so they wouldn't cut the budget. So that's star power.
Good for him.
James Bond
That's awesome.
tells you to fuck off. You.
All right. Well, then that's to go that route, because I kind of assumed you were going to do The Rock, which would have been one of my choices. I had to go with the James Bond film because he's so seminal. You know, he's the defining James Bond. And if I'm going to choose my favorite James Bond of his era, I went Goldfinger. Goldfinger, to me, it's the third Bond film. It's when the franchise really hit its mark, figured out exactly the types of stories that it wants to tell. I like when Bond films have adventures that sort of ground them in the US, and this has a Fort Knox aspect to it. Has Odd Job, first introduction of Odd Job, which is James Bond going up against a weird sort of henchman that lives in that universe. I think it was Connery is most comfortable with that. Obviously, it's got so many great images that are time tested for the Bond franchise. The character painted gold. You had a Bond girl, an actual character in a movie named Pussy Galore. Like they were just like, why not?
How old were you when that movie came out?
Oh, I saw it years later. I think it came out in the 60s, so I wasn't.
Okay.
I wasn't.
So were you
Jeez,
like 15?
Jesus,
15,
Jake.
20?
I was at least 25 by that point. But that was one of the first Bond films that Connery was in that I was going back to revisit. I was like, oh, this is actually an entertaining movie. Like sometimes they were a little dated and they were trying to find their way through. But I thought they really started to click with Goldfinger, and I wanted to pick a Bond franchise. But Michelle Garist and Lydia Mascoro and Philippe Carrier and many more went with Last Crusade. I feel like that's a seminal. Now, this is my time when I tell you guys that I'm a Temple of Doom guy. And I think it's between Raiders and Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom.
I love
Temple of Doom is
Doom.
fantastic. Yeah, it's
Temple
amazing.
of Doom.
Face, Jake.
Why is Jake making that face?
That's why this is a
don't
better
like
trilogy than Back to the Future. Anyway, I'm
But that's actually
Raiders.
not.
No, Raiders is a
that
better
far
trilogy
off.
than Back to the Future.
Back to the Future is better than Indiana Jones.
no.
It is.
We don't
It
have
just
time to
is.
do
Okay,
that.
you want a hot
It's-
take? I got a hot
it's
take for you.
science.
There's only one good Back to the Future movie.
No, that's not true.
That's absolutely
that is just
absurd.
not true.
And also, we can't say Indiana Jones is a trilogy anymore because it's not a trilogy anymore.
You know
But-
what we
but
mean
like
by
those
it.
three
I know. In the
films
same way,
are.
I get it. You know, trust me,
Yeah.
I'd still Star Wars is a trilogy.
That's
even though
being
it's-
persnickety. You got me. The
I love you saying that word.
such a great word.
Such a great word.
But I honestly, I think Temple of Doom is actually the best opening of all the
Oh,
Indiana
I hate
Jones
that
films.
opening. I hate that opening.
I love the opening. All right.
Todd and Rocaine Alzier
Club
and Amy
Obi-Wan.
Christina, they all went with The Rock. And then John Palmer chose another tremendous Sean Connery film, The Untouchables, which, again, perfect example of Kevin Costner is supposed to be the lead of that film. He's Elliot freaking Ness. And Robert De Niro is Al Capone. And they both get the show stolen from them by Sean Connery's
I gotta be honest
gangster.
with you, dude. I don't like The Untouchables.
It's amazing. It's
I think
amazing,
it's
and you're
super
wrong.
cheesy.
No. It's amazing, and you're wrong.
I think it's super cheesy.
Gabe has a really good one for next week. He's having us play hashtag Diablo Cody Blend. Really
Oh,
good. That's
a
interesting.
great
That's
one.
interesting.
Yeah, as soon as I read that, I thought that's going to be a really fun one. So
Where
we're
the
gonna
hell did
play-
that come from?
I know where that came from.
It's just, so Adam Brody mentioned it, and then I just did a story. I was just reading a story with Megan Fox talking about Jennifer's Body as well, and I was like, oh, that's great. We don't do enough screenwriters, I feel like.
True. And
she's
she's
a great one.
absolutely of the level that like you can debate her contributions.
Yeah, I mean, she's relatively young career, given, a lot of the people that we talk about.
Yeah.
But they're all, she's great
right.
work.
Diablo Cody Blend. So you can let us know your pick on social media or at ReelBlend at CinemaBlend.com.